Hello, everybody. My name is Joanne O'Sullivan, and welcome to my podcast, Just for Once. Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of Just for Once. Thanks for listening. I have actually a lot to cover today, so I'm just going to jump right in. The first thing is, in the episode entitled Happy New Year, I said one thing that I was hopeful for this year, that I would learn how to build my audience around this podcast better, beyond what I already had. And so to that end, I applied for a few things, I sent some emails, and I actually got some good news that I'm going to announce at the end of this podcast. The other thing is, I wanted to circle back to Premise Bootcamp, which was episode 15. And in that, I told a story, a premise that my father had given me. He wanted me to tell a story about him because I guess I don't really, and I guess that hurt his feelings. So I told you guys the story and said I might try it out, and I actually got some emails from you saying, please tell that story, which I appreciated. So I went out a few days ago and I told my dad's story, and I was not sure it was comedy, as I said, I think, in Premise Bootcamp, but I gave it a shot, so I think I should start out this podcast with just letting you hear how that went. So here it is.
I mentioned my dad in that joke. I have to say, people who know me really well know that I never really bring up my family in my stand-up. My husband a little bit, my daughter very little bit, but my dad and my siblings never. Everyone's like, oh my God, why don't you? Well, I just haven't. This is true. 2 weeks ago, I went home, and my dad told me that it hurts his feelings that I don't use him in my stand-up. Now, my father is 81 years old, and I really like my dad. He's your quintessential blue-collar tough guy. Like, he was a firefighter, and he played a lot of sports. He was a referee. He never went to doctors, grew up on a farm. So he told me he has this story that he wants me to tell as comedy, and I'm taping this so he can hear it, because I'm going to try it out on you guys right now. I should say, I'm going to jump back about 27 years. I was a Golden Ball Fair Queen. Thank you. I was a Golden Ball Fair Queen because my dad begged me to. My two older sisters were athletes, they wouldn't do it, so I went out, I wrote my speech on agriculture. I was competing with 3 other women, and I won. And got them all ball and my dad was so proud, explode. And then about 6 years ago, there was a reunion. They wanted to try to get 40 fair queens together. And they wanted to put us on a float of hay bales and drive us on a tractor through Bolton. And my dad wanted me to take part, and I was like, no way, Dad. And he was like, please, you did that thing. I'm 75. This is how I was with my dad. I got the hay bale. I had to put on my crown and my sash. And all of the others, so there were 7 fair queens. All the others were from the last decade. So it was them and me, the old fair queen, sitting with my crown on. We do the drive through Bolton, and there's people on the streets. It was the fair. It was the parade, and my dad's not there. My dad is not there. I was so mad. I was like, I'm sitting on this itchy bale of hay in my crown at 42, so you can see me, and he's not there. And then I was supposed to go have lunch with the mayor with my dad, which my dad was very excited about. So we go to the fair, we're supposed to meet at the picnic table by the cows. And I go and I sit with the mayor, and my dad's late, and now I'm worried. I'm like, he missed the parade. My dad never misses a parade. And he's missing lunch with the mayor. It was so important to him. And eventually he shows up, and he sits down, and we have lunch. It's very nice, and she's very nice, and we talk, and then she's got to go. She leaves. And I'm like, okay, Dad, we should go. And he says, and I have to say again, my dad asked me to tell this story. Okay, this is very important. I have been requested to tell this story. So I stand up, and my dad says, Joanne, I'm going to stand up, and I need you to look at the back of my pants and tell me if there's anything there. Like, totally flat flashes me back to high school, like girls checking for the periods or whatever. He's like, check. So I'm like, okay. So my dad stands up, and he is soaked in blood, from his bum to his ankles. And I'm like, Dad, what is happening? What is going on right now? Well, it turns out that my father had a hemorrhoid, and he did not know what it was. So he did what all good farm boys do. No. And he cut it off with a pocket knife. No. So there's that whole lot. Maybe this is a comedy. This might this is not comedy. So I apologize. But anyway, so he cut it off with a pocket knife. I'm like, Dad, if you're gonna die and you're bleeding out, and let's get you involved. He won't go to the doctor and it heals. And I was really mad, but I have to say, I was this much impressed. Right? Like, they just don't make guys like that anymore. Like, he's like, well, I don't know what that is. Better cut it off with my pocket knife. That's the right thing to do, and that's it. And then go have lunch with the mayor. That's what I'm going to do. He's like, that's the story I want you to tell. And I was like, Dad, maybe I had this idea. I can tell that maybe this is not comedy. And I was like, Dad, it doesn't really have a punchline. It doesn't really have like a big joke at the end of it. And he was like, I have a punchline for you. And I was like, okay, what's the punchline? And he's like, tell them he still uses that knife to cut his apples. Thank you very much.
So, yay, they liked that. Maybe my dad was right. Anyway, so many stories that he has. Maybe this is the start of something new. I will say, like, the reaction that I got, I think you could hear it when I said that he cut it off with a pocket knife. The horror, like, the shock and awe. So, still not sure if it's comedy, but they laughed a lot and they really had fun. And I have to say, more so than any other show I've ever done, I had so many people stop me after the show, like come up to me and want so many details. Like they just wanted so many more details of what happened, how long it took to heal, how he is now. Like they really wanted the minutia of that story. So I'm going to play that for him and maybe it'll end there or maybe I'll keep doing it. So now on to my good news, which I alluded to at the beginning of the podcast. There is a record label in Vancouver called 604 Records. They're quite a big record label for Canadian bands, but over the last few years, they've also started doing comedy records. No, I am not doing a comedy record, but they did launch a YouTube channel called Comedy Here Often about 2 years ago, just to play the content of their comedians who are under their label. But after that whole Just for Laughs serious radio issue happened, and then we got that radio station back, we all realized, including them, how few revenue streams there are for Canadian comics. So they made a commitment to open that YouTube channel up to outside comedians, people who had podcasts or sketch shows or sets, and that they would start playing outside content and doing a revenue split with the artists as their attempt to give Canadian comics a new revenue stream. So that's very exciting. It's run by 604 Records is run by Jonathan Simkin, and the person who contacted me was Kevy from Fake Shark fame. He's one of his producers. And they have decided that they are going to use my podcast to launch this call for outside content. So it's Comedy Here Often ? That's the name of the YouTube channel, Comedy Here Often. You can subscribe. And if you go onto the 604 Records website, you can apply to get your comedy content put on that YouTube channel. I'm very excited and flattered and so thankful for their show of faith that they're using Just for Once as their inaugural podcast. And it means that there's an opportunity for me to get some revenue for this podcast, which is super meaningful to me. I think it's just beginning. It'll probably start small, but who knows where it's going to go. So thank you, 604 Records, for that show of support. And in the next few weeks, when I go out to Victoria for Uno Fest to do She Grew Funny, my play, they are going to interview me. I'm going to be in Vancouver for a few days as part of that trip, and they're going to live interview me on their YouTube channel. So if you're a listener to my podcast, think about listening to it over YouTube on Comedy Here Often, because the more hits I get, the more chances are that I'll get a bit of revenue, which would, that would help. No matter what, though, it's going to raise the platform for this podcast. It definitely means more people will be listening to it, and maybe it'll add to the interest of Just for Laughs eventually inviting me onto their festival. So you never know. So just to remind again that in the next few weeks, actually, I'm going to be at Comedy Bar doing my solo show, She Grew Funny. So on April 28th at 7:30 p.m. and on May 1st at 8 p.m., that's a Sunday and a Wednesday, I'm going to be practicing for my tour out to Victoria, BC's Uno Fest with Intrepid Theatre. You can buy tickets in Toronto at comedybar.ca. So please come out to that. Thank you so much for listening. And it's kind of feeling springy. So if you have a dream that you want to dust off, give it a shot. You never know where it's going to go. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.